Good morning, designers. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Reisa Eldon with Ivy, and very grateful that Amanda Barnes from Amanda Barnes Interiors is joining us. And we are going to talk about all things moving away from the corporate world into running your own design firm. And Amanda is a perfect example. Spent a lot of time in corporate America and just what it takes to really manage the ins and outs of a design firm. We know there's so many different obstacles, whether it's social media, press, operations, project management. So before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about Amanda's background so you can understand where she's coming from. And thank you again, Amanda, for joining us today. She's live from this beautiful view of the Transamerica building in San Francisco. So very excited. So let me tell you about Amanda's business, Amanda Barnes Interiors. Elegant living for everyday life is the foundation of Amanda Barnes Interiors. Designing functional and sophisticated spaces for families to enjoy for years to come is the focus for each project from start to finish. Being a mother of two herself, Amanda takes a practical approach to selecting fabrics, layering textures, and picking pieces that will transition with the family as they grow. Her inspiration is drawn from her Southern California roots, growing up at the beach, just like me, and blended with her time spent in Santa Barbara and San Francisco. Her love for the coast is reflected in the neutral color palette she is most connected to. Amanda graduated from UCSB with a degree in biopsychology, whatever that means. She went on to spend the next 13 years in biotech, focusing on neurosciences. For many of the years spent in corporate America, Amanda spent time on the side helping her friends design spaces and renovation projects. Whatever it took, she would take it on, even if she didn't have time for it, because she knew that that was her love and that was her passion. After getting married and starting a family, Amanda finally followed her heart into design and founded Amanda Barnes Interiors. Her work has been featured in several online publications, including Art Digest, My Domain, and Style Me Pretty. So thank you, Amanda, for being here. And I want to make sure we all know what we're here today to listen and hear Amanda talk about. One, how to apply your previous background to your interior design business. Two, how and when to scale your business and what it takes to be a solopreneur. And three, the importance of professional photography. So, Amanda, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Before
we get started, I know on a very high level your background, and thank goodness for Ivy. We met, I think it was almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And when I met you, I remember having specific conversations, which we'll talk about later. But I really want to understand your previous career. What did you do and what did you learn? And how did you get to where you are today?
So just to back up for a second, biopsychology is really about the brain and behavior, and that's sort of how I kind of approach everything. I think it's rooted it's just my approach with everything. So what I did previously was focused in sales and marketing and training. I have notes, even though I know what I did. I just feel nervous right now, so bear with me. But I spent a lot of time working in corporate America, in our corporate headquarters, as well as in the field. So I have both sides, the experience internally and externally. I created all kinds of training content, very intense training programs for our division, as well as working in the field in private practice settings and large academic teaching hospitals. I also did a lot of educating on the business side of medicine. So I feel like I did a little bit of everything in biotech.
Okay, got it. And what, from what you did previously, how did you really make that jump to starting your own design business?
I mean, there's not one simple way in which you make a jump. I feel like it's a leap of faith and you don't even know if you're going to land somewhere safe. But it sort of happened unexpectedly when I had a 2.5-year-old and a 6-week-old. I essentially got a call from someone that said they gave out my number and this is going to be your first client. And I was like, you're crazy. I have a 6-week-old baby and I'm not sleeping. But in making the transition and just, jumping in, I kind of fall back on my transferable skills that I can bring with me from my previous, corporate career, which anybody can do. I mean, we've all worked in some capacity of customer service. And the thing, going back to my education, going back to my previous job, and going back to what I do every day, I feel like the biggest gems that I took with me that have really helped me were to make sure that, you connect the benefit of something to a customer's needs. So we talk so much every day about what something is, what this piece of furniture is, what it's made out of, what it looks like, what color it is, but we don't really spend a lot of time about why we do something and really understanding why this suits their need, their motivation. In sales, we call it the need behind the need, but really just connecting with the client and their emotions. And I've really spent a lot of time kind of focused on that. And the other thing in running a business is that I have worked in both corporate internally and in the field sales area. And anytime a company goes through hard times or needs to make big changes, the corporate business admin side is always expendable, because if you're not out in the field making money and generating a profit for your business, there's no need to have that internal side. And so I've always run very lean, but I've always run on the principle that I need to be focused on making a profit so that I can continue to do this.
That makes sense. Sounds like it's You can hear me, okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So basically, that leads me to my next question is, what were your biggest hurdles, and how have these experiences that you had kind of helped you start and run your design business?
So I sort of touched on my biggest hurdle just a second ago, but my timing was terrible. I had a 2.5-year-old and a 6-week-old, and you're not sleeping, you're not really thinking straight. So I've always felt, since I started, I've been doing this for years and years and years, but I haven't officially had a business on the web for, it's only been 2.5 years.
Okay.
But when I really got started, I felt like I had competing priorities, and your heart is going to guide you no matter what. And I'm always taking a temperature check with my family, and that's driving where my business is, because that's the most important. And then after I did launch, and with photography and a website, and we can talk about that more later, I felt like projects were coming in and I didn't know how to say no. I didn't understand the power of no, the value of no, the value of staying focused and, managing my business very well. And so I said yes to everything.
Okay.
And I ended up spread so thin that there were so many projects I didn't photograph. And of course, I wish I would have. And you got to grow through what you go through, and you got to learn.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And in terms of being a solopreneur, it sounds like you started off your business on your own. Tell us about creating systems and processes. How have you been able to leverage technology to make more time for design? Like you said, you started this business and you didn't have any systems in place. And that sounds like, your kids were really little. How did you manage it all?
Anyone that knows me well knows that I'm not very tech savvy. I never try to hide it. I'm very honest about it. I just went to an electronic calendar this year. For me, and the way that I do things before in my previous life and now, is less is more. I'm super focused on what is the least amount of things I need to do to work smarter, not harder, which is something my first boss really ingrained in me, is try to figure out what are the least number of systems you have to stay flexible and adaptable, because you're in a state of growth. And you're not going to find a lot of fancy templates in my business. You won't see me spending a lot of time on that. I really need to say, what do I need to get focused on today? 1, to generate a profit, and 2, to help my clients get through this phase. So for me, less is more. And of course, that's why Ivy is so wonderful. It has taken me from stacks of paper on my desk or binders, and everything's paperless. And I do use technology, Dropbox, Pinterest, Ivy, QuickBooks, all of those. Mm-hmm. But it feels less antiquated than even it did for me 2.5 years ago.
Got it. Okay. And when did you start your business technically? When was that first project?
So there's different answers for that. So when did I start doing this? 10 years ago.
Yeah, that project.
That phone call?
Yeah.
Well, my daughter just turned 3.5, so 3.5 years ago.
Okay. And what have you learned just in terms of technology from when you first got that phone call 3.5 years ago to today? Because I know that, like you said, it's very overwhelming. And I think the piece that's the hardest for most designers is that they can't do it all. I just wrote a post this morning on Instagram about like knowing that it's okay to outsource, knowing that it's okay. Like you might not be able to do all of your drawings. When did you hit that part in your business where you're like, okay, like I have Ivy, I have this, but like I really maybe need to, I don't know if you have employees, but I really need to hire some more help, even if it's just contract help, because you realize that it was taking you away from the design, from the stuff that was making you money.
So I think, for just about everybody, it's not relatable or realistic to say, oh, I have this much money in my business account, I'm going to go ahead and hire all these people. I think it's a good business practice to know how to run all the facets of your business and to be able to check on your business regularly and have a thoughtful conversation with whoever you end up employing. But for me, I was up till 2 or 3 in the morning. I was up anyways because I had a baby, but I was up till 2 or 3 in the morning every morning. And, it's just, I kind of go back to what I know. And I've worked with a lot of physicians, and physicians are not good business people by trade. They really need a lot of training on that. And what happens when you walk to a doctor's office is you're greeted by somebody, right? You are roomed by somebody.
Yep.
You are helped by an assistant, and then you're billed by the biller. And that allows the doctor to spend all their time with the patient, seeing you and generating the profit. And the same thing applies to design. The minute I realized that I was sacrificing sleep and design time, spending all the time doing paperwork, it was time to start hiring a bookkeeper and an assistant and, other things, other people, other resources. So I feel like you kind of have to, for me, because I'm so fiscally conservative and I like to stay lean, I have to be really uncomfortable in the space that I'm in to feel like I need to change something. Mm-hmm. But when you do, like every time I make a change, it's because it's allowing me to see more clients and make more money. There has to be a solid reason for it.
That makes sense. That's really good advice. It's not like you just bring in the force of people. You look at the numbers holistically. You understand like, okay, X, Y, if I bring in this and I'm spending this, it's going to make my margin this much more where I can spend time with my clients. And that's the stuff that you, as a designer, I'm assuming, like to do more than the social media.
I want to do the admin stuff, but I think it's important that I understand what's going on and how it's going on, so that I can continue to fine tune it. Because I am a business owner, unfortunately, before I'm a designer. Because if my business is not healthy, I don't get the opportunity to design. So I stay very close to it.
That makes sense. And I like the fact that you kind of know how to manage the different facets of your business, but maybe it's not the best use of your time to be managing. But if that person, because when you're a business owner, I feel like sometimes designers will just be, oh my God, my assistant handles all of that. I don't know how to do that. And this is just my kind of vision of like, and what designers have told me. I'm not making this up, but I think that as a business owner, it's really important. And I think all of the designers tuning in today, like know how to run every area of your business, know how to run Ivy, know how to use the pieces of
I know everything well. Don't ask me to teach anything on QuickBooks ever, but I can understand if something is put in wrong or, needs to be, adjusted. It's really important to stay in control of everything. It's your money. It's your credit score.
Yep. That's such a good reminder. And you kind of touch on this a little bit, but my next question was, tell us about the business administration side, such as managing expenses, setting yearly goals, and what in your previous experiences, because it seems like the numbers also are something that designers, sometimes they don't look at their numbers every day. They don't know how much profit. And what have you taken from your previous career and instilled in Amanda Barnes Interiors to help you really get to the numbers that you want to be at? And for 2019, looking forward, how do you set those goals? And sometimes people don't even set numbers. They don't know how much they're making. So I think it's a really important piece of your business to focus on.
So the first thing with business administration, as a small business owner, as someone who was solo for a very long time, I think, and I'll talk about goals and intentions in a minute. I'm far more of an intentions person, but you need to stay focused on not burning out. You need to stay focused on how to manage your business so that you are not going to be hitting a wall every single week, because you get stuck in the weeds in this job so easily. So I think, like I was saying earlier, I have very few processes that I do, very few templates, very few things. Everything else is outsourced to a bookkeeper. To my design assistant does all of my renderings. Like I stay really focused on a couple of things, and that is it. That's of course not how I started, but that's how we're kind of transitioning. Everything I do every single day is to run a profitable business. Sometimes the day sucks and you are backpedaling or you're fixing an issue or there's 9 pieces of damaged furniture that showed up today to the receiver. But no matter what I do, I always find a way to bill for my time in something that I did that day, because every day has to generate a profit to cover all of my expenses. That being said, there's also an external component, I think, to business administration, and that has to do with your clients. Because if your clients are getting stuck in the weeds, they're forcing you back into the over and over into the same scenario. And so when I was a trainer, I would create all of this content. I would run these my field sales reps through this giant data dump, and then they would get overwhelmed and it would be very emotional. And the process is so much the same with a client. When you're going through the presentation and the design phase, it's super overwhelming for them. You are dumping a lot of information on them, and they get very emotional about it because they're essentially just hemorrhaging cash for an experience that they want, but it's so uncomfortable. And I think the more time that we invest in our clients in the front end, educating, connecting the features of what we're selling to them to, and the benefits of how it affects their lives, to their needs, like the reason that they hired you, the more time you spend educating in the front end, the less time you end up cleaning up messes in the back end. And that's time, and time is money. And so really trying to keep everything clean, consistent, and simple is just the way I do all of the admin.
I love the way that you think and the way that you speak, because it really resonates through. If you follow Amanda on Instagram, and if you don't, you should. But if you look at her work, it's really clean, it's consistent, there's a purpose, it's purposeful. And I feel like that's your job, is to educate your clients. And exactly, if you educate them on the front end, it saves you a lot of trouble in the back end. I think that designers sometimes forget that you're going into somebody's sacred space, their home. This is the holiest of holy, besides like a church or a temple or something like that. And your job is hard, like it's stressful, and they're entrusting you. I was just watching a video actually about this guy's space that was transformed, and how he brought in a designer and he would have never thought that he would have had an orange chair in his home, or he wasn't a rug guy, or but each piece has a meaning. And I love the way that you design. And Amanda, I tell you this all the time. I look up to you, and I think that what you're doing is amazing, but I think the way that you explain your business too, and you can speak to it, it really resonated in the photography that you get, in the clients that you bring, and the essence of you is really reflected in your brand as well.
Thank you.
And that leads me to talk a little bit about, kind of, before we get into the creating profitable business model, and we've touched on it a little bit, but I really want to go into building your design brand, because I think that that's something that you've done really well from the time I met you 2 years ago to today. Instagram is really cohesive. Your website is beautiful. Your photography is beautiful. And I think that as a newer business, sometimes those are the things that people forget to do because they get so bogged down with the administrative stuff. But from the get-go, you've done. So what, if anything, are you doing to build your personal brand? And does it extend to customer service? What do you think about branding? How do you present your design business to the outside world and really distinguish yourself from other design firms? A lot of questions, but you get the gist.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for all of your kind words. When it comes to branding, I really can't say anything before I say that I owe just my heart, and I have so much gratitude to Alyssa Rosenheck, because I actually hired her initially to do my branding. I didn't know she was a photographer. And it wasn't until after I spoke with her, I went and Googled her, and sort of every image that I saw was something that I had already seen on Pinterest 500 times. So the first thing I would say is you need to find, if it's not in your wheelhouse to do a website and to just inherently understand how to brand your business, find an amazing branding company. That was one of the first things that I did when I was ready to launch my business, when I had been saving and saving and saving. You don't want to hire someone that's affordable, that can just throw it all up there for you and do it for you quickly. I mean, that will save you time, but it's really not going to save you money. You want to do it once, and you want to do it right. So for me, I'm a mom. I have 2 small children. I really care about where I live. I care about what it looks like. I've always been that way. I probably will always be that way. My husband had a line in our vows about pillows. It's who I am. And so branding is about authenticity, and it's about, consistently repeating this message over and over. And for me, if it's not a relatable message, I'm not interested in it. So authenticity, consistency, and relatability are really important to me. Elegant living and everyday life to me means it's a pretty space that I can live in. And every single thing that I do needs to resonate that. It needs to feel, you need to be able to express that, feel that, see that. Authenticity, just you need to see what your message is in every single picture, and you need to be consistently putting that out there. And consistency shouldn't be confused with quantity, quality over quantity. Some people put stuff on Instagram every single day, but sometimes it's somebody else's work and that's not their brand. And so I feel like it's a little bit confusing. And if it's not something relatable, if it's not something I would put in my own house, if it's not something I would purchase, there's no way I'm going to sell that to somebody else. And, photography is extremely important. This is how you connect with potential clients, through an image, right? So what you're putting out there, what you're saying about your brand, your reputation, who you are, what you do, is all captured visually in a tiny little, in our case, square most of the time. So the other thing you have to think about is, like for me, I'm often designing homes for people with families, right? So you're not going to find a lot of like lighting on the floor. That's just not safe, or things with outlets where kids are playing in outlets. So for me, everyday living, elegant life, I'm talking to parents. I need to sell them something. I talk about, this is what I want to put in, but why I want to put it in is, all of the lighting is on the walls, it's on the ceiling. No kids are going to be playing in the outlets. No kids are going to be knocking this over. You guys can have tag going on in this room and it's totally safe. So it's tailoring your message through your brand consistently, authentically, and making it relatable.
That makes sense. I think what's really interesting is the way that you speak really resonates your brand as well. So you hit a lot of points of like making things consistent. How did you, and obviously hiring a really good branding company that understood you to get you off the ground from the get-go is smart. Sometimes people wait, like 5 years and they're like, oh, okay, what is my brand? What is my identity? And knowing like that you do need to make that investment, save the money now if you're thinking, or now if you already have a design business and you haven't, that's where all of your money should go, your first big investment into your brand. But I also think what's interesting to tie it back to, was there something in your previous role from corporate America and from your sales background, which you touched on a little bit, that helped you establish branding for your design business?
Good question. So example, as a trainer, I had to develop content with the marketing team, or sometimes I was doing the marketing messages. So I had to come up with our brand, our line, what we were going to sell our product, how we were going to sell our product, all of those things. And I had to sell the exact same message to the field sales. I had to sell it to the marketing team, to legal and regulatory, to the VP. So I was managing up, I was managing to the side, and I was managing down. So that was the same message, but how I delivered it and how I explained it was tailored completely to whoever I was speaking to. And so that's a really good exercise, is trying to figure out, like, take something, anything you're going to sell that day, whether it's a coffee table, and why is that the right coffee table for, the father, the mother, the 2-year-old, the 12-year-old. You've got to figure out what about that is appealing to them and connect the benefit of that product to, the need that they have. So I think it's just thinking about who you're talking to, but staying exactly the same with your message and tailoring it.
That totally makes sense. I see some people commenting in the chat section. You guys are really sweet. Some people, just so you know, Amanda, what people are saying. I'm so impressed on how well you manage your business. Really sweet comments. If anybody has questions, please go ahead and ask them below where it says ask a question, and I will make sure to get to those questions at the end. But don't worry, I've done my due diligence and I'm asking Amanda some really nitty-gritty questions. So we'll make sure that we get a lot of questions in. And if you have any other questions, we'll hit them at the end. So building your design brand, that gives us a really good perspective. And there's so many elements, it's hard to get overwhelmed from the Instagram and your website and Pinterest and Twitter and what, logo and design awards and getting published in a magazine, and what is most important to you?
I mean, every day you need to select things and be selective so that the things that you're picking are in tune with your strengths, because ultimately you're defining yourself by the projects that you take. Your brand is best reflected in the projects you take that reflect your strengths. What are you good at? Figure out what you want to focus on. For me, it's usually, I like to work on a whole home because I like to bring consistencies and make a project feel cohesive, but I like it to be livable for a family. That's what I need every day. That's what I relate to. I think you just have to stay on point. And this also goes back to goal setting and intentions. For me, I don't really care for goals. Goals feel lofty, they feel difficult, they feel hard and unattainable and overwhelming to me. I'm very much about the process and not the end result. Every single day, I am trying to figure out, in my corporate mentality, how can I fine tune the business administration? How can I fine tune the process for the client? How can I elevate their experience by spending less time there, more time designing, and more time at the finished product? It's a process. And so like this year, I kind of backed off of Instagram a lot. One, I haven't had a lot of new stuff to share as far as projects, but I've been sharing less in general, picking quality over quantity, and I've been focusing on my internal process. I have grown as a business, but I'm also choosing not to scale up right now. I just can't. I'm competing priorities with my babies, and they're very important, and I still have 1 or 2 years left where they're not in school full time. So in the meantime, how do I make more money doing what I'm already doing? And it's with Ivy, it's with my process. I've also gone back to, I will not present more than one room at a time. I really need a client to connect with everything on the page that I'm presenting on my board, understand why, touch a sample, explain it, feel it, really buy into it. If they buy into it, the process from, building the proposal that they're going to approve right away, and the invoice they're going to pay, and the PO goes out, and it has allowed me to get through a project much faster. It still takes a long time, but it's the little things every single day.
So when you're presenting, because I think that's a really good piece of advice, not only is it overwhelming for you to present like a whole home, and it sounds like you're taking on projects where you're not just maybe taking on one room, you've gotten to a point in your business where you are taking on whole home renovations. I personally know because I know the projects that you're working on when we talk about it, but so you're saying that you just present one room at a time to your client?
So I guess the way that I think about it is people get stuck in things like money and numbers and project costs. And the whole entire reason they hired me is for the value that I bring to them and the service that I provide. They don't have to do anything other than approve it and pay for it. And so whatever the budget is, that's for me not always going to cover the cost of the whole house like they think. And so I have to break it down. So this is what it will cover. If I'm going to work on this, I'm going to finish it from top to bottom. I'm going to put my brand on it, execute my vision. I think that, it's really staying focused from start to finish on. I don't know that I'm answering your question, but
you are. I think the way that you see the project is different than how most designers see it, and it's a very thoughtful process.
Yeah, the other thing is they get lost in the details. So if you present too many things or you give too many choices, then they start to question. I have a client who every Sunday night sends me an email, and I think she and her husband talk about the project every Sunday night. They check in where they are financially and timeline. And for me, it was really frustrating for a while. And then I just had to reframe and say, well, they're probably just trying to get some more information because I'm not doing a good job of explaining it. I need to break it down. I need to slow down. And I need to give the emotional reason why they're going to connect them to it. And as soon as I started doing that, the Sunday emails stopped. And I realized that they haven't bought in. I cannot leave. It's just like a sales presentation. Unless you close hard and you close on exactly why all of these things meet the needs that they ask you to go source for, it drags on the admin and everything else. So really trying to one room, get the buy-in, get it going. Even if I have more than one room ready, I still will only present one at a time.
I like that. And, it's very clear that your previous experience has helped you to where you are today, because even the way that you think about the process, it's the same as the sales process. And you're selling something that you're passionate about and that you believe in. So it probably makes your job a little bit easier now, and it's fun for you. And you try to keep the things that you like to do fun. So, and move the things that you don't necessarily like to do, outsource that in a smart way so that you can really stay focused on keeping your clients engaged, getting them to buy in, give you the money, and make it very clear. I think that that's the biggest takeaway that so far that I understand. Even if you don't have a sales experience, it doesn't matter. The point of why we're giving you this information today is to really think about your business holistically and understand that each part of the process, there's a reason. So maybe if it's not working out and you're having a difficult time communicating with your client, do what Amanda does and take a step back and say, okay, what's happening here? Is it me? Okay, I need to analyze and critique the way that I'm presenting the information, instead of spending hours on social media that's not directly driving your sales. Maybe you spend those time.
It will expedite the business side of it. And then you can also use those tools later. So how do you make more money in one presentation? I mean, ultimately, that's where we're trying to take this, to a more profitable space. So you can do that, and then you can continue to challenge yourself and push yourself out of your comfort zone. How do you sell a far more expensive piece of furniture? How do you use your reps to make them sell something to you, and, make them sell it over their competitor? I do that a lot, and I ask a lot of questions. And if I'm going to sell something, like, for example, I just sold, a very, very, very expensive sofa. It was a custom double chaise sectional.
Okay.
From Lee. And so it was not cheap. And before I was willing to go in front of my customer to do it, I called my rep in the showroom and I was like, give me every single reason why I should be selling this one. And then I showed up unannounced, so he wasn't really ready for me. And I said, I want you to walk me through as if you were selling this to me. I need to know why it's so great. And before you do that, I want you to take me to its direct competitor first and show me why that one is so great. And then I did that with him. And then I brought my client in because I wanted him to see the value of what he was getting and why it met all of his needs. Of course, I showed him a less expensive version first, and where your dollar's going. So I think you can take this information and do a lot of things with it. You can condense your practice and how you do it and how you get to the end result, but you can also use it to challenge yourself to do the same amount of work and make more money.
It's such a smart concept. And I think that, like I said, designers get so bogged down in the nitty gritty that they don't have time to think the way that you've thought about your business. And it's actually what's going to help you get to that next point in your business, right? Where you are truly thinking smarter, not harder. It's the same thing. And I love the example of the sofa, where you're showing your client and letting them touch and feel. So much of what we do has become online. We're pulling away, but there is that piece of your business that engage your reps. I have this window covering guy and he's exorbitantly expensive, but I know the product of what he's going to represent and install in the client's home is 10 times better than, I don't know, like a Pottery Barn bar with a thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but what differentiates the product? And that's your job as a designer to do that research. Same thing. I hear from a lot of designers, Stark rugs are very expensive. You know how I feel about Stark. Love their product. Everybody says, Reisa, you're crazy. But if you get the client and that understands the difference between this Wayfair rug that's $200 and a Stark rug that's going to last over time with the family and grow as the family, it's an investment piece. And I think that's your job as the designer to do your due diligence, do the research, and push your vendors to do the work for you.
Agreed.
And so question, okay, so getting into a little bit more of the nitty gritty, creating a profitable business model, you've honed in on your numbers, you understand your margins. But when it comes to, a separate project management fee, like when it comes to procurement, obviously that's the process where a lot of designers start to lose money. We just did a session with Right Way Receiving about talking about the receiving process and damage.
That webinar was fantastic because it broke down the value of the service and the benefit to the customer. That webinar, I watched it and I learned a lot, because when people get stuck in money, you're trying to sell a service, but what is the benefit? You got to connect the benefit back to the customer. It was amazing. I loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, Layla, and what Scott is doing is amazing. And not everybody has that mindset. So what we try to do at Ivy is bring this content, this other way of thinking. And we obviously, people are already thanking you on here. Like, thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for your wisdom, because people get so stuck in that one way of thinking, but there's so many different ways to run your business. I think that it's really interesting when it comes, and this is my question, because this is where a lot of designers lose money. They lose money on the procurement piece. They lose money on how to understand how to bill out. How do you bill out to your clients when it comes to procurement? Do you keep that same design rate, or do you have a separate project management fee, or is that something that your assistant is really managing, is the procurement?
Okay. So there's a lot of questions. So first, if you worked with one customer or you work with 900 customers, nobody's the same. Some people decide instantly. I have one client who just came back to work with again, and I love them. I will present them something and I will walk out the door with every answer. Done. But that's an N of one. Some people need 14 choices. Some people need 5. Two people go in to get a divorce. The divorce attorney is not going to say, hey, I predict it will take you exactly 15 hours. So I'm going to charge you 15 hours. It's not the way it works. Business is business. If I am not making money, there is no reason for me to be doing what I'm doing. I have expenses too. So in order to run a profitable business for me, I bill hourly, and of course I mark things up. Of course it comes up with, my clients, when we go through setting expectations in the initial consultation. And the way that I explain it to them is that I have to run a profitable business. End of story. Do I get discounts on things? Absolutely. If I do get a healthy discount on something, of course, I'll pass on a portion of it after I've made what I needed to make off of the sale. Do I ever highlight it during the process? No. Do I ever point it out? No. If I continue to bring it back to the money, they're going to focus on that. I always take that conversation, no surprise, and I go back to why they're hiring me. What is the value that I'm bringing? What are the services that I'm providing? I'm going to select things, 1, that they probably won't have access to on their own, and 2, how am I going to put it together for them so that it's something that they wouldn't have been able to do on their own? That is what they're paying me for. It's a luxury service. I'm completely aware of it. I definitely have my eye on IMAP, versus MSRP. Nobody's paying MSRP on the internet anymore, which gives you the opportunity to spin if you really had to get into the conversation of markup, you can either say, I'm going to split my discount with you, which often means you're actually marking it up a ton if you're looking at MSRP. But those are not conversations I like to get bogged down in. I really try to answer their question and bring it back to the value of the service that I'm providing.
That's amazing advice. If only everybody could have that kind of clear, because you take it away from the money, like you said, and you make it's a luxury service. That's it. And if the client's going to get into it with you, okay, from the beginning of the project, you get that weird kind of feeling. It's not your client. That's not your client.
To work out the semantics. It takes time to figure out what your approach is going to be. But it's just like your brain. Be consistent, be authentic, be honest. What are you comfortable doing? Say it every single time. Make it relatable to your customer. This should work for you because you're hiring me to do this job and be on the phone 45 times to get this one piece of furniture that may arrive damaged into your home in perfect condition with not a single piece of trash, right? So you have to decide how you want to drive that conversation. It's going to come up every time. It should be easy, it should be pleasant, and redirect it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then so if you're billing out hourly for design time, when you get to the point of like where the items are shipping and there's receiving issues and install and more project management type stuff, do you keep that same design rate, or do you have a different project management rate?
Those are great questions. I obviously don't charge my assistant's time at the same rate that I charge my time out, but my time is my time. I cut my time in half for travel. But at the same time, I feel really strongly that I don't want my clients to walk away feeling nickel and dime. So much of this is a really pleasant customer experience. So much of my business is referrals. So, you have to make good decisions. If something went wrong and went sideways, it's not really fair to the client that you spent 3 hours and it's going to cost them an extra X amount of dollars to get a non-damaged piece of furniture. But if something that is completely in your control happens and is messed up, you know, you have to think out of control versus in control of the client, like really what's happening there. And you have to make good decisions. Sometimes I do charge my client for time to fix things or change. If they're changing something, for sure, I'm charging them.
Yeah.
And I always try to instill in my assistant that, you know, you don't want to walk away and have them looking, you know, oh, well, she actually charged me to sit there and talk to her 5 minutes personally. Like, I don't want anyone to feel that way. So it's much easier to hide a markup, you know, money in the markup than it is in your time billing. So that's a hard question to answer. I use a lot of judgment on that, especially in the back end. I want my clients to walk away feeling warm and fuzzy and happy and like they got everything they wanted for their money and had a good experience. So that's harder to answer.
But something you did answer it. I think you did answer it. It's really using your best judgment. You know, if you were on the receiving end of that bill, what would make you still feel that warm and fuzzy? And as a business person, what would exemplify and carry on your brand? And your brand is of the utmost highest level of customer service. So you definitely answered the question. I think every situation is different. Every client's different. You have,
and it always comes back to, would I be okay paying that if I was in their shoes? Because you have to respect, you know, your client's time and money.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Okay, before we get to questions, few more questions from me, just wrapping up. For the new designers out there, and I know you've hit on this, but can you share some words of wisdom you wish you had when you first had received when you first launched your business?
Okay, I wrote these down. I'm just going to read them.
Okay.
I did not know a soul when I started in this industry. It wasn't until the first Ivy meetup that I met somebody that I now call my design friend. And, you know, I really don't have a lot of people in this industry to talk to. So I took this really seriously because I wish someone would have shared this with me. So I have a short list. I have 6 points going from least to most important. And they're all really, you know, I feel like practical. The first one is that you have to love design, even on your hardest days, because running a business is an emotional roller coaster, and it's going to challenge you to your core and force you to ask why you did this every single day. You have to stay focused, keep everything manageable, and stay consistent. The second one is to make peace with being in a constant state of growth. It's actually a very uncomfortable place to be, but we're in a business where, you know, trends and products are constantly evolving. So take that to heart. I think the third one is to force yourself outside of your comfort zone regularly. It's the only way to grow. Make the investment in a good photographer and partner with them. Consistently use them. And, you know, you may not pick the most affordable photographer, so you may have less images in the end. But if the images you have are far superior than, you know, what you would have gotten from somebody else, it is so worth it. Because that is you, that is your brand, that is what people see and ultimately defines you. This is a really big one for me, and it's be selective. You know, it's hard to do that in the very beginning, but you also have to figure out what you can be selective about in the beginning, whether it's your process or your projects. The biggest one, the very biggest one for me, is that it's easy to go down a rabbit hole when you encounter a project. I mean, you see that on the Facebook threads all the time. It's hard. You feel it emotionally. But you have to remember that we can never take our jobs for granted, that we're in someone's home designing their sacred space. And this is a really important place for somebody else, for your client. And it's a privilege to help, you know, create this space and be invited into their homes every day, because ultimately you're creating the space where they're going to build lifelong memories. So we always have to come back to that when things get hard and remember that.
That's awesome. Super. I hope everybody was writing that down, or you can replay it and take notes. But Amanda, that's from the heart. And when I first met you at that Ivy meetup, I remember, I don't know, like there's this connection, and I could tell that you were like overwhelmed looking at all these people talking to each other. And I think to see where you were and how far you've come and the wisdom that you're open to sharing with our community. And that's what Ivy's all about, community over competition. You know, there's a lot of work going on. You see people even posting like, hey, this job's an hour away from me. I can't take it. Are you interested? And that's what it's all about. is sharing that knowledge, sharing that expertise, because what you learned, and maybe you had a really tough first job and you learned all these things, and to be able to share that, then when what goes around comes around. And then there's Dina over here that learned this, and she's like, oh my God, I have the perfect vendor for you. Here's the vendor. He really hooked me up, and you're in a crisis. You really rely on each other, and you have that support system to know that you're not crazy, that you picked a crazy profession, but, and to have the technology, like you said, you're not necessarily a tech savvy person, and you'll be the first to admit it, but using and learning Ivy. And I remember when you first started using Ivy, you were like, oh my gosh. But using Dropbox and learning how to communicate with your clients, I think that at the end of the day, that's what's important, is being able to look at your business as a whole and constantly evolving your business and knowing you're in that state of growth, which is uncomfortable.
Look at your things, stay flexible, stay focused, and, a little at a time.
That totally makes sense. And it's when you look back now, looking at where you would have been in corporate America versus where you are now, knowing that you're grateful and you're in this space and that you have your intentions, and that in corporate America, you just get stuck in that rut going round and round, and that you chose this. I think sometimes, and right now, a lot of people are burnt out and just like, it's the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Like, need everything. And so if we rely on each other, that's what's going to help us get our business to that next level and continue to keep going.
I agree.
So thank you for all of your words of wisdom. I seriously hope everybody took notes, because Amanda worked really hard on putting that together. But let's make sure we get to everybody's questions. So here we have Johanna asking, how did you work to scale your business and maintain the work-life balance?
Always the $1 million question, right? Yeah. When my daughter comes home and says, why didn't you pick me up from school? I never pick you up from school. But, I think the work-life balance is something that's always in flux. And for me, when I'm hitting a wall at work, I then take it out on my family, right? I'm tired and I'm exhausted. So if I'm doing things that are holding me back from making money, I have to reevaluate my process, or is it time to add somebody? But if, things feel good in a week, I kind of leave them as is. The number one thing that I am working on next year, and that has always helped me in my old career, and something I didn't talk about, was corporate America in my job would pay me 1 day a week in the field, all day, to sit in my desk, get organized, block my calendar, get ahead. And I got really bad at that this year. And that was actually part of what drove me to an electronic calendar. There were a few times I didn't have my planner, which is embarrassing to say. So then I would have to call somebody back later, which was a waste of my time. I should have done it when I was standing there. So I think, blocking parts of your calendar for you time, family time, work time. And if you can't get done what you need to get done in those blocks, and you end up working on the weekend or late in the evening, then it's time to start outsourcing.
Mm-hmm. No, that totally makes sense. Calendaring, calendar blocking, and outsourcing, two of the biggest things I think that designers look past. Here we have a question from Kate. How many projects do you have at one time, and how many employees do you have?
Good questions. If you asked me this time last year, I was an N of 1, and I had 11 projects going, and those were all full houses, and I was losing my mind. That's why you didn't see any pictures from me. Right now, so it depends on what you consider an employee. Like, I have a bookkeeper that I meet with regularly, that I email with literally every day about certain things to help them, quickly do my books. I have a design assistant that I work with, and that's really it. Like I said, I'm of the camp to stay lean and fiscally conservative. I probably will be hiring somebody next year to do a lot more project management for me, because that's where I get stuck in the weeds right now.
Okay.
And chasing things down. So that's where I'm at. And right now I run anywhere from 6 to 11 projects.
Okay, got it. Great answers. So and this is from Claire, I'm in the early stages of starting my design business. Do you recommend specific platform or channel for getting project leads, social media, House, Thumbtack, Yelp, local networking? She's just wondering, because it sounds like for you, word of mouth was really great for you. And kind of because we didn't touch this, but if you hone in on your personal progression in your jobs, how that one job translated into other jobs, I think would be helpful too.
So I think the best way I can explain how my business sort of got momentum was I saved and saved and saved and saved. And, I pass on a lot of discounts for a particular project, and I knew I wanted to photograph it. So do what you need to do to get the experience, whether it's a lower hourly fee or whatever it is in the beginning, and get really good pictures, and then get help in the branding department. And for me, the way that I got momentum was through Instagram. So by posting, and if you live in a small suburban town, post it to the major city that's next to you, kind of identify your business with more of an urban area so that you can grow.
Okay, that makes sense. And in terms of photography, so when you say you got business off of Instagram, were you posting pictures and people would DM you and send you messages, and like that's how you would set up? That's really where all your leads came from?
Yeah, or they would link to my website and go through my website.
Okay, so that's really important, Claire, that you're listening to that, because I used to run a branding agency, and a lot of designers think past like, oh, I don't need a website, or I can just have an Instagram profile. Maybe that works for some designers. There's an Ivy design firm that doesn't have a website and they are killing it, and their business has totally grown. So everybody is going to be different, but I do feel like if you have a website, it really shows a bigger portfolio of your project. And like some people have said, you might not have those projects yet. I think I saw a question, but like, how do you get clients if you don't have the projects? Photograph your own home, like be creative, design spaces for friends and family, take professional pictures of that, and that will give you some content to really build that website. So then you can start growing your portfolios and getting clients from there. And it's also having really great references, right? Like if somebody calls you and they say, oh, I see like one project, and you can be honest. You can say, hey, like, this is a great project. I have 4 other projects that are being built. I don't have professional images, but I'm happy for you to talk to my client. That's another way to really build your business without a lot of stuff under your belt.
I do find that though, that last part is a little bit harder to sell yourself with from experience. So really, if you can get good pictures, that is everything.
Yeah. And Amanda, tell us, because I know that you've been, like I read from your bio, in Arc Digest, in SMP, My Domain. Is that a translation of working with a good photographer? How does that work for you?
That is everything about working with a good photographer. For me, part of why I hired Alyssa was for the branding aspect, and she was really able to help me, navigate Instagram in the beginning. But so we just shot another project, which I can't wait to share, but essentially I defer to her for the pitching and the publishing because that's in her wheelhouse. That's something she specializes in. That's what I pay her, as part of our project fee to do. So she has amazing relationships with editors. I do not. Time is money. I don't want to waste my time figuring out one more thing. I'm not good at it. So anything that you might read, all of that text will come from me, of course, because I'm the one who did the project. I'm very close to it. But all of the photographs and how the photographs got there, that's all her. So kind of essentially partnering with her. She is very much a partner. She was my mentor in the branding department. She has become a dear friend, but everything I do with her is definitely a collaboration right down the middle.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think that's all for questions. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being here. And everybody that's joined us today, feel free to stay on. I am going to show you a little tidbit of Ivy so you can learn a little bit of how that's transformed Amanda's business. And thank you so much. You should all follow Amanda on Instagram. It's Amanda Barnes Interiors, and I'll leave that in the comment section as well. And thank you for being so gracious with your time. I know you're a busy lady, and we really appreciate it, Amanda. You're awesome, and we really are so excited that we got to hear about your journey, and look forward to seeing your new projects on Instagram.
So much.
Thanks, Amanda. We'll talk to you soon. All right, for those of you that are still with us, I want to go ahead and share a little bit about Ivy so that you can understand how this has really transformed Amanda's business, and so many other designers have been able to make more time for design. As Amanda said, her eyes are always on the prize, how to create that profitable business model, looking at numbers every day, outsourcing. And that's really what we teach and we educate you on. And we also want to give you a tool, not to mention an awesome community, to help you achieve these business intentions, business goals, whatever it may be, to help you grow your business and make more money. So you should be able to see my screen right now. And I'm just going to show you a couple and talk about a couple highlight things that I love about Ivy. One, tracking time. tracking time. And I didn't touch on this with Amanda today, but it's everybody's biggest nightmare. So with Ivy, we have an app. You can track your time on the go. There's a time tracker right here. You can select the project that you're working on, select the service that you're providing, add in a little description, set the timer right here. When you're done at that client's meeting, you can log the time. Even if you don't bill out hourly, you can still mark it unbillable, so you can actually see how much time things are taking you. And maybe you're underestimating your hours or you're overestimating your hours, whichever way it is. Ivy will help you keep track. And then you can generate a beautifully branded invoice. It looks the same every time to your clients. And this is really key because you're giving your client that branded experience. You're giving them the best, utmost level of customer service. You're even allowing them to pay their invoice online so that they don't have to write you a check. You can take bank transfer or credit card. We just try to think about all the things that take you time and take you away from making money. And you can just send this out to your client. You can ask for bank transfer or credit card. There's a 3% processing for credit card, 1.2% processing fee for bank transfer. You can charge the client the transaction fees, lots of different ways. You can do it however you want to do it. And the client even has their own portal where they can see all of the invoices that they've paid or that need to be paid. So it makes your life really easy. The money just goes straight into your bank account, takes care of everything for you really fast. Now, what Amanda was talking about in terms of, really using Ivy as her virtual assistant in her kind of back pocket and how it's so easy to learn technology, right? We built this to be intuitive. We give you a dedicated account manager. We give you access to our private Facebook group. People are sharing their documents, their contracts, their branded project schedules. All of this information is right here within your Ivy account, and it goes on the go with you because it's based in the cloud. So let's just say you're putting together a proposal. You're presenting one room to your client at a time. I liked that advice from Amanda. I go to my vendor's website. I have this Ivy clipper right here. It nests as an extension on my Chrome browser, and it allows me to clip the items directly from my vendor's website. So I can categorize it. Again, being smart, looking at the end of the year, how much I sell of different categories, understanding like what my top categories are, where I can pick different products. You're the expert. The client is hiring you for this luxury service, and it's up to you to have this education. And then it's up to Ivy to help you manage all of the information in a really organized, centralized place. So right here, I can go ahead, put in my markup. Let's say I want this to be $1,600. It will calculate that markup for you. I've already loaded in all of my vendors, so I can select my vendor right here. I can add a description. I can add it directly to a project, and I can add the full product spec. So obviously the client won't see this information. This is just for you when you send the PO over to your vendor. And you can select the dimensions, all of the information here. You can save the product. And then when I go to build my proposal, that item will pop up right there in my product library, so I can add it to my proposal. Pretty easy. You can see all the products that you've clipped. You can add any other items. Maybe you want to build out a whole room and you want to see all of the chairs that you have right here. And I can easily add those chairs. And maybe I want to add some service items. You can 100% add that in as well. Totally up to you how you want this to look. But Ivy gives you a fun little line right here so you can see the total cost, the total markup that you're making. Always look at your profit margin, right? You want to be at an overall 40% gross profit margin. A little hard to get to that 40% right out the floodgates, but by really paying attention to your numbers, looking at your numbers every day, knowing how much you need to make to run a lean, profitable business, Ivy will help you manage all of this without using a separate Excel spreadsheet. It's all here in one place. There's a column for you to put your cost, your markup, add your shipping, your markup. You can even customize the rooms right here. There's a lot of flexibility that your clients get this beautiful presentation from you, not only of the items, but you can also break out your own custom tear sheets that have your logo, your branding right here. You can view tear sheets. And this is what the tear sheets look like. Very easy for you to create without adding an extra step. I feel like there's so many moving parts that this is the piece that is most important. Bringing the samples to your client, showing them the tear sheet, how much things cost. Like Amanda said, don't get stuck in the numbers, and then moving on to the next room. So that's tear sheets. And then once they pay you, maybe it's online, then you can go ahead, generate your purchase order, and Ivy helps with the procurement process, right? And that's where you want to be efficient with dollars, because at any given time when item actually comes, there could be stuff that gets damaged. This is the piece that you want to have clear and organized. You can go ahead, send your purchase order to your vendor. You can use our calendar to really manage and plan out your installs. And then we give you a project tracker. So the project tracker will allow you to see a running list of everything going to your receiver for install day. You can print out an FF&E schedule. You can see everything that's on order by picture with the details, including scheduling details. This is really helpful. It's really the heartbeat of your project, right? Everything right here in one place. Export to Excel, export as an FF&E schedule. You have your product library here so you can easily access items when you're sourcing. You can just put everything in here so that you can easily find it. And then you can, of course, upload your vendor list, your client list, everything, again, in one place. And that's what we love about Ivy, is that it's very easy to use. You get your dedicated account manager. You get access to our Ivy community, to our industry webinars. I saw somebody asking a question. Yes, you can access all of our past industry webinars right here in your Ivy account. And then you can also pull reports. You can pull reports for transactions, project payments, sales tax liability. You can export this to Excel, and you can also link your Ivy to your QuickBooks Online account, okay? It's a one-way sync from Ivy to QuickBooks Online. You can use Ivy as a standalone software, or you can use it together in conjunction. Whatever is easiest for your bookkeeper. Again, another thing I highly recommend outsourcing is bookkeeping. Behind branding, bookkeeping is your best friend, because you can really do it at an affordable price where you can leverage those costs in your project management fees to clients, because that's helping manage their project as well. You can use our curated network of service providers to find somebody for 3D rendering, to find a photographer, a bookkeeper, you name it. We're here to help you. We want to give you kind of your business in a box right here. We want to bring in people like Amanda, who, again, Amanda, thank you so much for all of your insight and your wisdom. The things that she wished she would have learned when she started her business are so important, and take those to heart. Even if you've already started your business and you've been in business for 15 years, honestly, this community is amazing. It's life-changing. If you're in the Bay Area, would love to meet you. I'm here. I love talking to designers. And if you do have any other questions today, let us know. Happy to answer any questions. And again, we can set you up with a one-on-one demo with an Ivy Guru to get more insight into how you run your business. There's a little green button that says get your Ivy demo. So happy to set that up for you. And if anybody else has any questions, I'll go ahead and plug in my email so you can reach me. Definitely follow Amanda on Instagram, follow Ivy on Instagram. And thank you again for joining us. We hope you learned something today that you're going to take away and instill in your business in the new year or even next week. So thank you so much. We'll see you soon. And thanks for being here. Bye.